For most of us, whether we own or rent, the home we live in is our single biggest expense. An expense that keeps getting more and more, well, expensive. In the last couple of years, the cost of renting nationally has spiked. Eye-watering numbers going up faster than inflation and wages. All of a sudden, we're spending more and more of our income on rent.
It's never been harder to find somewhere to live.
Rents have hit a new record high.
Record highs.
Weekend after weekend, people are lining up, fighting for the few places left on the market.
It's so hard.
A lot of them feels like you don't have a chance.
There is no doubt right now we are in a rental crisis.
Right around the world, it's the same problem. In New York City, rents have shot up 20%. In London, average rents are up 13.5%, and in Singapore, rentals went up by nearly 30%.
So we're going on a hunt, hitting the streets of some of the world's biggest cities to see what your money can buy or rent in 2023.
There's a lot of dingy places in London.
It is quite original.
We'll try to figure out why things got so expensive all of a sudden. What caused this spike and why did it happen all over the world all at the same time?
The rental system has to change.
This is not a niche issue. 30% of us rent, nearly 1 in 3 of us paying more for seemingly worse places.
They're like roaches, rats, it's dirty. So you could be paying an arm and a leg and barely get a closet.
It's a common problem. Does it have a common solution? What broke the rental market? And can it be fixed? There's an often used rule for assessing rental affordability, especially for low-income families. You want to spend less than 30% of your income on rent. That's the threshold used by some government departments to measure housing stress, and even before the pandemic, lots of people were exceeding that 30% threshold. In the private market, about 30% of households spent more than that. That grows to nearly 60% of low-income households, and among them, nearly 1 in 5 are spending more than half their income just on rent. And that was 3 years ago, when we weren't really talking about a rental crisis. If you're a single person on Sydney's median income looking to affordably rent on your own, good luck. To stay below the 30% rule, you need to get by with just $261 a week. Here's a room you could get in a boarding house in inner Sydney for $250 a week, with shared bathroom and kitchen. But if you don't want to share, your only hope's a studio apartment. This one in Blacktown's a little over budget. And if you're on a low income, the rental affordability scheme might help you secure this one in Bankstown. That couch, by the way, it's also your bed. If you want a place with both a bedroom and a kitchen, well, you're either going to have to spend more or find someone to live with. For 2 people, how much of a challenge is finding something decent? Our team's on a mission in some of the biggest cities in the world, armed with 30% of the median household income in their city, from New York to Tokyo, London and Sydney. The challenge for them is to see how far their money can go and which city gives you the best bang for your buck. Will they be living in a shoebox, sharing an apartment with cockroaches, or commuting into the city from the other side of the country? Or can someone find a diamond in the rough?
So we'll start with the reception room here at the front of the property.
Lovely.
Actually, it may not fit. No, it's way too narrow.
Nice and sunny over here. Oh, I can see the pool.
The door pretty much ends at this wall.
A bit small.
A bit small.
While they go house hunting, let's look at the state of the market right now. CoreLogic has been estimating the median weekly rent of all homes in Australia for 17 years now. And for years, that trundled along, growing by a bit over 2% a year. But then, in 2020, something happened globally that sent rent spiralling.
We saw that prices didn't fall anywhere near as much as you might have expected given the circumstances, and their return has been incredibly rapid.
Take a look at this chart. Here's the 30% rule, and it shows us that rental affordability has been deteriorating. Things weren't great a decade ago, but the typical portion of income needed to pay the rent slowly fell through the decade. But this is the shock of the pandemic. It's back above our 30% threshold. And remember, this is an average, so for some people, things are much worse, especially low-income earners.
They're seeing much higher levels of incomes likely required to service rents.
Finding something affordable is one thing. The first step is finding anything at all. CoreLogic's seeing half as many rental listings now as it was 3 years ago. It's simple supply and demand. And the vacancy rate, the share of rentals that aren't occupied, has tumbled from a decade average of about 3% to about 1% now. That has knock-on effects.
And the next step for a lot of these people, our citizens, is to be living in cars and couch surfing, and that is an outrageous situation that we find ourselves in this country.
We're seeing an increase in requests for homelessness services in Australia, and we've seen that increase every year since 2012. We've seen an increase in social housing wait lists, which is now well over 100,000 nationally.
So prices are rising, there are fewer listings and more people looking. All the ingredients of a rental crisis.
I've been in the industry for 30 years and I've never seen a housing affordability crisis as bad as what we're experiencing right now.
Everyone's on edge. I think tenants are on edge. I think landlords are on edge. No one knows what's happening with interest rates.
We had 40 groups inspecting. Obviously that can only go to one group. You know, it's hard to see 39 groups not get approved.
For 5 years I was renting a 2-bedroom apartment on my own for $400 a week. The owner of the apartment I was renting had to sell, and then to have to go find 1-bedroom apartments for over 600 was a bit of a shock. The queues and the crowds that turned up was just crazy. I wasn't expecting that.
Being a landlord initially was quite a great experience. Unfortunately, with the impact of COVID, everything got quite crazy. People couldn't afford to pay their rent. The rents don't cover my investment at all.
Are they going to keep me on? Am I going to get a rent increase? What's going to happen? And yeah, that's kind of the worst part, the uncertainty. And then, of course, if you do get an eviction notice or a rent increase, what's your next step? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do?
So how did it get so expensive? Like all things economic, it's about supply and demand. Demand first. The number of people looking for rentals went up. The pandemic forced a lot of us to reevaluate how we live and who we live with.
People spread out across the rental market, share houses broke up.
Relatively quickly, the average number of people living in each house fell to 2.5. That might not sound massive, but the Reserve Bank says it led to 120,000 new households being created. 120,000 households that need a house.
Being in a share house in such a stressful environment can really take a toll.
Post-lockdowns, something else pushed up demand.
As we reopened Australian borders to overseas visitors, we saw a big catch-up in overseas migration.
New arrivals are more likely to rent than buy. Now that might be temporary as the lockdown era of the pandemic fades. We might see share houses get back together and migration return to normal levels, but that won't be the end of demand issues. A government report in April forecasts that in the decade ahead, new homes built won't keep up with new demand, and most of that shortfall is in apartments. So where's this new housing stock going to come from? Because there are some real bottlenecks in supply.
We haven't been able to build houses quickly enough, particularly at the affordable and social end of the housing spectrum.
There was actually a boom in home building in the last decade in Australia, and most of the increase was in apartments. But that boom has well and truly ended.
So there's a lot in the construction pipeline right now, but when that's done, when that's complete, I think you're facing a bit of a vacuum of new projects for 2024.
With that, you might be tempted to pack up and leave the country in search of cheaper housing. But is the situation there any better? Our team's been out and about. Hopefully they can answer that. They have just 30% of the median household income in their city to find something decent.
Take like one of these ones?
Yeah.
Welcome to New York. This is one of the world's great cities, and when it comes to renting, it's also one of the most popular. A little over 2/3 of homes here are rented, with 1/3 owned by the people who live in them. In other parts of the US, those stats are basically opposite. So it's no surprise that prices here are hot. I've been given 612 Australian dollars to find a place to live. And I can tell you now, that doesn't give me many options.
Manhattan is particularly pricey, but I've managed to find an apartment in Greenwich Village, although it might not be to everyone's taste.
Jen, hi.
Hey, Jen.
Thank you very much for showing
Thanks for
us
coming.
this.
Yeah, no problem. So this is apartment 17, and it's a studio with a shared bathroom, shared shower. We're going to get like a small type of electric stove. But this is pretty much it.
She's not wrong. That is pretty much it. At about 14 square metres, it's tiny. There's room for a bed and not much else.
So you do have this big window here.
This is, I would say, one of the main features. You have trees, greenery, and yeah, it's not that common. I would say this is great.
And it's pretty hot in here. Is there air conditioning?
So that's what we'd have to work on. So we would have to put a window AC, which may cover the light a bit. It's all about making things work for the budget. It's a challenge, but it's feasible.
To get to the bathroom, we need to head down the hallway.
Okay, do you want to go in and check it out?
Yeah, I'll have a look. So 6 people share this one
Well, we don't
shower,
have 6
is that
people.
right?
We don't know if they're couples or anything, but it's 6
Right,
units.
6 units.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So we could be dealing with up to 12 people here. Let's hope they keep it clean.
Got it. All right. And the toilet, where's that?
The toilet then is right here.
This is it's just separate from the shower. So how do people tend to feel about sharing bathroom facilities with other residents?
So because the neighborhood is so desirable, when I've shown it, my experience has been that people have seriously contemplated it. I mean, it's a serious contender.
So could I actually afford this place with my budget? There's no guarantee.
So how much would this apartment cost to rent?
So we would have to negotiate that right now. So we would basically have to put an offer on the table, maybe for a longer lease. These are things that we need to consider to sort of make you stand out.
It's time to look for some other options. So I'm making my way to Brooklyn to check out what's known as co-living.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the Williamsburg house.
Thank
Let's go show you around.
Great.
This is kind of like an ordinary share house, except there's a total of 160 people living in this building, split into 4-bedroom units. Each apartment has a shared living area and kitchen and 2 bathrooms. It's already furnished and the common areas are cleaned weekly. But you don't get to pick your housemates and you can't have anyone stay the night. This type of living has been nicknamed dorms for adults.
New York City is supply constrained. There's not a lot of housing available. We facilitate this process of sharing an apartment.
So this is one of the bedrooms. Living space, a couch, a desk and a window, and then the bed is up here. I couldn't stand up straight, I hit my head on the roof. And if you look here, it is climb. But because of these high ceilings, they've been able to cram more into this pretty small space.
And the cost? Around $780 a week. Way over budget.
This hasn't been easy. We had a pretty narrow range of options to begin with, and a couple of places fell through at the last minute because they were snapped up. It gives you some sense of just how competitive this market is.
On the other side of the pond, rental prices in London aren't much better.
Flight 3 to Deptford Bridge.
Just like New York, this city attracts young professionals and global nomads who are much more inclined to rent than to buy. And the proportion of renters is growing. Back in 1991, just 14% of London's population was in the private rental market, but 30 years later, it had shot up to more than 1 in 4. There are more renters competing for fewer properties, and for young people on lower incomes, it's especially hard. But I'm lucky because for this task, I've been given 30% of the median London household income, a budget of £253 per week. Even so, I can tell you it's not going to be easy to find a decent place in a central location. I'm starting my search in West London. For many years, Shepherd's Bush was one of those London suburbs that was synonymous with Australians. It's got transport links, shops, bars and restaurants, and for many Aussies, it's been good value for money. I'm going to find out whether the area still lives up to that reputation.
Hi, RuPaul. Nick, nice to meet you.
Nice
Come
to meet
through.
you. Thank you. Real estate agent RuPaul Patel has taken me to see one of the cheapest places he's got on his books. With that in mind, I'm a bit worried about what I'll find.
Come through, Nick.
Thank you.
So we'll start with the reception room here at the front of the property.
Lovely.
The property is approximately 500 square feet, completely refurbished. You've got wooden flooring throughout.
This place is much nicer than I was expecting, and now I'm worried about the price. The apartment has a decent-sized living area, a bathroom with a shower only, a separate bedroom, and a kitchen.
So this is our shower room here. Once again, just like the rest of the property, it's been completely refurbished, and a beautiful shower with a bit of storage there as well.
Looks like a good shower head.
It is. Great pressure here as well. We've got a heated towel just behind you as well. So Nick, over to the kitchen, we have our oven and microwave integrated there. Just on the left of you, we've got the dishwasher, full size, which is actually good to see in a flat
That's
like
important.
This. Yep. We have our breakfast bar just here as well. Come through, Nick. So we have our outside space here.
Oh, this is nice.
This is very nice.
Maybe a bit too nice. An outdoor space will only add to the price. It's time to go back inside and talk money. What's this place going for?
So this is actually very reasonable. This is on the market at £1,900 per calendar month.
So my budget is actually only a little over $1,000 a month. Is there anything on your books that...
Well, to be fair, you wouldn't even get a studio apartment in this area for that money now. Look a little bit further out, unfortunately, you know, and I'm not even talking Ealing or Wembley. You would have to go, you know, on the outskirts of London.
Well, that was a bit of a wake-up call. Even though I've been given a theoretical budget that's bigger than many Londoners, that place wasn't affordable for me, not even close. This next place I'm going to look at is in East London. It's a short walk to shops and there are buses and trains close by. Judging by the pictures, it does look a little bit rough around the edges, but I think I am going to have to sacrifice a bit to get something that's within budget.
Right, come on in.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome to our 3-bedroom property in East London. So we have the living room. It comes with its own balcony.
It's nice and airy. This apartment is definitely roomy. The living area is a good size and there's 2 double bedrooms, plus another half, which could be a study. Coming off the hall is a toilet and a separate bathroom, and at the end is the kitchen. So this is bedroom number 2?
This is bedroom number 2 indeed, Nick.
Is that the built-in?
This is the built-in, yes, or what used to be. And it's wonderful to have, you know, space that is ready to have a wardrobe there. Next, you've got a split bathroom in this property.
Small but functional.
Small but functional.
Test it out, let's see. It does the job.
It works. Yeah.
All right, just have a see the rest of it. And here's the other half of it.
It is the other half indeed. So you've got the bath and you've got the sink.
And that's about it. There's no shower, not even a mirror. Okay, so nice big kitchen.
Nice big kitchen. What I wouldn't have to have a kitchen of this size. So very big kitchen. Again, you can put your own stamp on it. So as you can see, initially there's a bit of uneven painting, so you're welcome to repaint.
And space for a dishwasher too.
Space for a dishwasher, exactly. If you'd like to add a dishwasher, any appliances that you'd like to add, it's highly likely that you'll find space in this kitchen.
When it comes time to talk price, I'm amazed. This place is going for just £210 per week. That's about 415 Australian dollars.
Finding a light-filled 2.5-bedroom home in London is hard enough, let alone one that's close to work. And for me, it would be about 35 minutes door to door, which is a big selling point. Best of all, this home is within my price range, but there's a catch.
This apartment is cheap because it's scheduled to be redeveloped. Nobody knows exactly when, but I could be given as little as 1 month's notice to get out. It is tempting, but it would be a bit of a gamble. Then again, renting in London is not for the faint-hearted.
With more than 39 million people, Greater Tokyo is the most populous city in the world.
It's notoriously packed, and its famously tiny apartments means renting here can give you little bang for buck.
To top it off, the average income in Japan is a bit less than you might expect.
It means I've got the smallest amount of money to spend in this challenge, about 420 Australian dollars a week, or 40,000 yen. This might be tough.
My search is taking me to two quite different parts of Tokyo. First up, the trendy area of Meguro, where the main beats of Tokyo are right around the corner.
Hello Alex, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for showing me around. I believe you've got an apartment for me.
I do, you want to go see it?
Let's have a look.
Sure. All right, you ready for this?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Here we are. Yeah, take off shoes in the front of the apartment because that's what you do in Japan. Yeah. Okay. And first off, you'll notice it's a little bit, well, cramped.
It's a bit small.
A bit small. A little cozy, let's say.
Cozy, maybe. But this apartment is actually twice the size of what Jade found in New York at 32 square metres. It has its own bathroom, toilet, outdoor space, separated bedroom with a walk-in closet. Of course, it doesn't have everything.
What are you missing?
In the cupboards.
Well, yeah, you can take a look, sure.
Is it an oven?
Exactly. So it's very common in Japan to find that you will not have an oven. To be honest, in Japanese cuisine, you don't really need an oven. So most people just don't have one.
On the flip side, renting in Japan gives you some unique advantages.
And this is how you hang your laundry.
Ah. And is this one of those fancy Japanese toilets?
Yes, this one is. This is a wet room style bath, right? So you can get everything wet in here and not have to worry about it. And yeah, you want to climb in there, see.
So you get a bathtub?
You do get a bathtub, yeah. So that's the thing in Japan is that basically no matter how small the place you get, you're gonna have a bathtub in most cases because everybody wants to have a bath. It's a very cultural thing over here. You'll notice that it has a panel over here. This allows you to reheat the water in there. Also, you can set how high you want the water to be and at what temperature you want the water to be as well. So it's a very high-end bath.
And a bonus, the whole room can dry your clothes.
The panel out here, so if you just press on this button, you can dry the entire place. So a lot of people use this as an actual clothing dryer, right? So another space-saving measure.
For one person, it's pretty comfortable. But remember, our budget is for 2 people.
So here is your bedroom.
Okay.
Right? I can almost touch the walls. This would fit literally a bed. It is a bedroom in the most literal sense. It's a room just for your bed and how tall are you?
Just under 6 foot. So
just under 6 foot,
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that is...
It's doable. I'm touching the power point at the end.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
All right, the important question, how much is this place?
Right, so I did the math for you. This one comes out to $427 dues a week.
Okay, 427 Australian dollars.
Yes, which is a bit over what you were saying, but you're very close to anything you would want to go to.
Okay, so what if I need something bigger? Well, for that, we need to travel.
Now this is one of the best things about living in Tokyo.
We're heading to Tachikawa. It's well over an hour's drive from central Tokyo, or 40 minutes on most trains, but we're taking the special rapid train. It runs a few times an hour and only takes 25 minutes.
Here's the entrance, again, shoes off. This place is a little bit larger.
Little bit? It's double the size, at 60 square metres. It has 2 bedrooms and, well, everything's just a bit more generous.
So first thing you might notice about this kitchen is that it has an extra burner. Yes, this is a 3-burner stove, unlike the first one.
But still no oven.
Right, still no oven, but you do have this,
Okay.
which is a fish grill.
Okay.
There's also a traditional tatami room.
So what's the purpose of a tatami room? Is this a living room or is this a bedroom?
Yeah, so it's an interesting combination of both. It can be used as a bedroom, so basically you would put your bedding into here, your futons into here, and then roll them out and sleep on them at the night. And then during the day you would put them back in, and then you would usually have a fold-out table that you would put here just to have tea or something like that. So it's a relaxing room.
But there are hidden costs.
You'll notice that this room is a little dark, and there's good reason for that, because, well, there's no light. That is the socket for a ceiling light, and that's a standard socket in Japan. It means you have to go and buy your own.
Bring your own light.
Bring your own light.
So I'm bringing my own lighting and I'm
Yes.
bringing my own air conditioning.
That is correct. It is $383 a week.
So we're under budget.
Definitely under budget.
It's a nice place, but you're further from the action. And the station is a 15-minute walk away, which in Tokyo is considered kind of far.
Both places I found were close to budget, and there's a reason for that, which I'll get into later. If you don't mind the quirks, the smaller spaces, and you love a bath, then renting in Tokyo certainly has its advantages.
Sydney. It's the most expensive city in Australia to be a renter, whether you want a house or an apartment.
For most people, the cost of renting a house in the harbour city is completely out of the question. But even an apartment here is now a stretch for many. The average rent for a unit here is $688 per week. That's followed by the nation's capital, Canberra. Melbourne, maybe a little surprisingly, comes in at 4th with Perth. And at the bottom of the list is Adelaide. It's the country's most affordable capital to rent in. So I've got my work cut out for me picking a place in Australia's most expensive city, especially if I want to be in striking distance of the CBD.
I'm looking in the inner west suburb of Dulwich Hill, which is about 7 kilometres from Sydney CBD. A real estate agent's agreed to show me a few places to see if I can find anything in my budget of $620 a week for 2 people.
I'm starting at a place just off the main shopping strip, close to the station and light rail. It looks amazing. Split over 2 levels, it has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 1 parking spot. But there's a catch.
So this one here, Angelique, is a very modern apartment. It's split level. It's got a beautiful kitchen with stone bench top. It's got lovely timber floors, a really sunny outlook, and this complex actually has a swimming pool. It has a bedroom and a bathroom on this lower level.
Nice and sunny over here. Oh, I can see the pool.
Yeah.
So this is one of 2 bathrooms in this property.
Yeah, so this is 1 of 2 bathrooms. It's quite a good sized shower, considering.
This apartment looks slick, but it comes at a cost, and it's pushing my budget.
Before COVID or during COVID, it was sub 600, and now we're promoting it at 680. There are a lot of modern properties that are renting in the moment in this area, and they range from about $650 all the way up to $800 for 2 bedroom and 2 bathroom. This is probably one of the most inferior of the most modern with 2 bathrooms, so we've priced it at 680.
So how much interest have you had for a place like this?
We've actually had more than 10 people inspect this property today, so competition is fierce.
I really like the look and feel of this place. It's big and modern. It's no wonder it's so popular.
So I don't know if the camera can really show what it's like in here, but this bedroom is massive and there's a lot of lovely natural light coming through. But unfortunately, this place is out of my budget. It's $680 and I have $620 for 2 people.
So Angela was taking me to another place about a 10-minute walk away. This time it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1 parking spot property. They're asking for $540 a week. but I might have to make a few compromises.
Okay, so you're gonna love this one. It's a 2-bedroom Art Deco apartment. It's on the top floor of just 2 apartments. It's got heaps of natural light, district views, right next to the station, school, polished floors throughout. It's got a built-in wardrobe, and it's got a brand new kitchen and stove. This has just recently been installed during COVID, actually, about a year ago, just to update it, because at the time we couldn't get tenants loving properties like this.
Angelo's sales pitch is glowing, but this place is an obvious step down.
So this one hasn't got a renovated bathroom, unfortunately. So it is quite original.
Original is one way to put it.
And how would have this place gone before COVID?
It would have struggled to actually lease, but now we're seeing this as being a very popular property.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with what I found, and I think I did pretty well compared to the others in London and New York. However, it was really difficult to stay under budget, and both places were rented out immediately after we had a look at them. Whether you live in Sydney, London, Tokyo or New York, what we're seeing is that all over the world, people are having to stretch their budgets. That means less money to spend on other things and less money to save.
What broke the rental market? We could just blame the pandemic and call it a day, but some would argue it was broken long before that.
We have gotten used to a poorly run renting system. It does not achieve what should be its primary purpose of delivering good homes to people in the areas that they need it and with the size and quality that they're looking for.
He says that housing should be treated like an essential service, and that just like governments regulate markets for other services like electricity and water, we should be regulating housing to ensure some minimum standards are met. That's a big conversation and politically a difficult one to have.
In the meantime, we have to stop biting the hand that feeds us, and the hand that's feeding us right now is the mum and dad investors.
What if the government just put a limit on how much landlords can raise rent?
Rent price regulation means that the system can better meet people's needs while we sort out the changes in supply and building in the background.
It's something being tried in Canberra, which has had rules since 2019 limiting annual rent increases for ongoing tenants to 10% above inflation. Rent can only go up by more if the tenant agrees or the landlord gets approval from a tribunal. The rules only apply to people on month-to-month periodic leases. Every time a new lease is signed, landlords can raise the rent more. Whether it's a direct result of the rent rules or not, Canberra, despite having very high rental values overall, has had some of the lowest rent increases in the country recently.
There are some merits to it, and I can see why you would want to try and limit the increase on rents each year. Having said that, I think to introduce it to investors that bought into the market maybe a decade ago or even 5 years ago, not expecting that kind of regulation to be put on their property, it probably is a bit unfair.
This idea, it's a bit novel in Australia, but limits on rent increases aren't uncommon in other cities. You'll find them in some European countries like Germany, in parts of Canada, and in New York.
New York City has a rental regulation system covering more than 1 million homes. One of those policies is called rent control. This dates back to the Second World War and strictly limits how much rents can be increased by. Rent-controlled apartments are usually much cheaper than market rates, but the scheme has been phased out, the number of units has dwindled, and really now the only way to get access to one is if it's passed down to you by a family member. Rent stabilisation is more common. In these units, a board appointed by the mayor decides the percentage by which rents can go up each year. And in most cases, tenants have the right to renew their lease. As you can imagine, competition for those types of apartments is fierce. And so a lottery system helps to decide who gets one. Hi.
Hey, hi, welcome.
Thank you.
HPD.
Great.
I've come to meet Ahmed Tagani. He's from the government agency that runs the lottery, and he's going to show me how it works.
The housing lotteries is our process for making sure that anyone who needs a unit of affordable, accessible housing has access to it in a fair and transparent way. So when a building is financed with HPD or city dollars, it goes through this online portal where people can apply.
The type of property you can apply for depends on how much you earn and the size of your household. It covers people on very low to middle incomes, and preference is given to city workers like teachers and police officers.
Just randomly, family of 3, $60,000 a year. You can see that we have at least 2 pages of different buildings that are available.
And roughly how many people apply per property? What kind of odds are we talking about here?
We have about 400 applications on average for every 1 unit that we have available.
400 to 1. They're pretty sobering odds. But what can these apartments look like for the people who do manage to get one?
Welcome to my apartment.
Thank you. Tell me about this place.
I am obsessed. I've been living here for about 2 years now.
And it's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom?
1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. There's laundry downstairs in the basement. We also have a gym in the basement.
Nneka Okoli spent several years applying to the lottery and now helps others to navigate the system.
So how do you get a rent-stabilized apartment? It sounds great.
She'd rather not say exactly how much she pays in rent, and it's not cheap. But she's able to get a lot more for her money than she ordinarily would.
Without the housing lottery, do you think you could find a place like this in your budget?
No. Absolutely not. So I do think some of my neighbors pay probably twice what I pay for this apartment. And I definitely don't think I would be able to afford it, especially not now that I'm a student again.
New York's rental regulation system is controversial. The biggest argument against schemes like this is that it's unfair to landlords. And if landlords can't make money, it will end up having a long-term negative effect on the overall supply of housing stock.
The fear is that it decreases the supply of rental housing in general and drives up the cost of those unregulated rents. It is a very good protection of the people who are lucky enough to have a rent-regulated unit. It is not a protection for the people who need an apartment and can't find a rent-regulated apartment, which is most people who are searching.
Housing affordability is a complex problem in New York. This is a densely populated city and people want to move here from all over the world. It means that many will continue to struggle.
Solving the problem of supply might seem simple, just build more homes. But you can't just rock up and build a house or a block of apartments wherever you feel like. Throughout Australia, land's assigned to zones, roughly broken into residential, commercial, industrial, mixed use, public use, agricultural. And beyond that, every state and territory has its own system dividing the zones into subcategories. Within each of the zones, there's rules about what you can do and what you can't do. It's all horribly complicated. But what if zoning laws weren't so restrictive?
Unlike other major cities, Tokyo doesn't have a housing shortage. Quite the opposite. If we look at the supply of housing, we can see Tokyo, the blue line, has outperformed other major cities like London, New York and Paris for decades. There's some 10 million unused dwellings in the Japanese capital. So why does Tokyo have so much? I'm grabbing a coffee with Tokyo-based architect Jorge Almazan, who offers a simple explanation.
Well, you can build a house everywhere.
Well, almost. Tokyo has 12 zones. Here they are on a map. Residential, commercial, industrial. But these titles are a little misleading because you can actually build homes in all of these zones. There is one exception, and that's exclusively for industrial use, and you'd probably not want to live there anyway.
The fact you can build a home in almost every zone, 11 out of 12 zones, What does that do for housing supply?
Well, I guess the city can react organically to demand, basically. If there is demand in certain area, of course, you can provide housing. Even in that most residential zone, you can have like small workshops, small bar, small restaurant, small boutique. So it's still mixed.
And that's where this giant map comes in. Rather than telling you what the zone is, it tells you what's actually been built. And the sheer explosion of colours shows you just how mixed the city is.
I think this map probably doesn't exist in many other cities, because basically in other cities the zoning is a zoning, right? It's what you get, but not in Tokyo.
The big central hubs are obvious. But you can also see the smaller commercial hubs dotted throughout what would normally be suburbia. All of this is connected by an intricate and reliable rail network.
If you want to live in the city center, it's going to be expensive. I mean, I think this is something that we need to clarify. But if you don't mind living a little bit outside I would say the central 23 wards, or even in the, let's say, outskirts of the 23 wards, you can get quite reasonable housing. And the secret, of course, is transit. I mean, everywhere in the Tokyo metropolitan zone, you can get in less than 1 hour.
Compare Tokyo to New York. Over there, zones are more rigid. These yellow areas are for single or two-storey use only. Areas for commerce are just that, no housing. It's called Euclidean zoning, and it's what's used in most American and Australian cities. The problem is, if an area fills up, there's no scope to add anything else, and that starts to push up prices. Whereas Tokyo,
I would call it more like an emergent process in which you don't have so much of a top-down control, but it's more like a bottom-up process. And I think Tokyo offers that diversity. I think that's the main lesson.
there are some drawbacks. Developers have far more free rein, and residents have no guaranteed rights to complain, so long as construction fits within the generous zoning laws.
We hear in Australia the expression NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. People who don't want higher density or commercial in their neighbourhood.
Yeah.
Do we see that in Tokyo, that attitude?
I would say it's less prominent than Australia or also the United States. I think it's quite common. But I think citizens in Japan and Tokyo, they should be allowed a little bit more of participation. I think that would be positive for the city.
Tokyo hasn't experienced the big sharp rise in house prices that we've seen elsewhere. And we have to keep in mind prices in Japan have been stuck in a bit of a time warp, with wages, inflation, economic growth stagnating after a big crash in the 90s. But like everywhere else, the cost of living here is going up thanks to the pandemic and global inflation. So is all this extra housing stock helping? Is it the solution? Well, take a look at this. The cost of small apartments has stayed pretty consistent. There's been a more noticeable jump in bigger apartments. But now let's add the average rental prices for Australia. It's clear that Japan's price rises haven't been as sharp. And experts will tell you that's got a lot to do with supply.
There's something else we should consider. Who is supplying rental properties into the market? There are more than 2.2 million private landlords in Australia, and most of them own a single investment property rather than several. And the homes owned by these people, they make up most of the properties on the market.
We need to stop being so reliant on just mum and dad investors to supply the rental stock. That's why we need more social and affordable housing from governments.
Social housing owned by Australian governments and designed to be affordable and stable for lower income people used to make up a bigger share of Australia's housing stock. But over time, states and territories have withdrawn from the market.
So if you look at dwelling approvals and the portion of those dwellings that are government owned, it's come down from about 8 or 9% in the 80s and 90s to less than 2% today. I think that the withdrawal of government housing over time has removed that kind of cushioning, especially for the most vulnerable in the rental market, when you do get fluctuations in the private rental market.
We really should be aiming for at least 10% of our housing stock to be public or community housing.
In some countries, 10% would be regarded as low. Nearly 3 in 10 homes in the Netherlands are social housing, nearly a quarter in Austria, and about 17% in England.
When you look around London, it's sometimes hard to believe there's such a shortage of affordable rentals. In almost every neighbourhood, you'll find block after block of social housing, or at least that's what it used to be.
This is a council estate in London, between Battersea Park Road and the railway. 28 blocks, population over 7,000 people.
The nationwide program to build affordable homes gained pace throughout much of the 20th century.
Good morning, my dear. I'm from the Tenants Association.
But in the 80s, it started running out of steam. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher favoured home ownership.
She let people who lived in social housing buy their own home at reduced price, which is obviously in itself not a bad policy, but she never replaced those homes with new social homes. The overall stock has been really seriously depleted.
There are 1.5 million fewer social homes today than there were in 1980, and there are 1.2 million households waiting for accommodation. With a limited supply, only those in the most critical need can qualify, forcing millions of others to try their luck in the private rental market.
As we've already demonstrated, if you're on a modest income, it is very difficult to afford your own private rental anywhere central here. And that's pricing out a big chunk of the city's workers, people that London desperately needs. Teachers, nurses, police officers, people who should be on decent wages are having to funnel more and more of that salary into rent. And for some, the only solution is to leave.
To try to prevent that exodus, the Mayor of London runs a scheme called London Living Rent. The rents aren't tied to the wild market prices, they're tied to what people actually earn.
So you quite often find that young professionals are spending maybe 50-60% of their income on rent, which obviously then means that they can't afford to save in order to raise the deposit to move into a purchased home. So this London Living Rent, it meets a really important need.
While private landlords might be charging a premium, under this scheme, tenants would have their rents set at no more than 30% of the average household income for the local area, and the leases last for a minimum of 3 years.
And they've got the peace of mind of knowing that they've got the security of tenure for that period of time, and at the end of 3 years they can renew for another 3 years and then renew for another 3 years. But at the end of the 10 years, then the property does have to be sold.
Many of the homes available under the scheme are new or recently built. I've come to see a development in Hayes in the city's west, not far from Heathrow Airport, but on a new railway line into London.
So this is the master bedroom?
This would be the master bedroom, yes. There's a fitted wardrobe in each of the bedrooms.
Nice.
This one has an ensuite.
Excellent.
This one's got 3 bathrooms actually.
3 bathrooms?
Because you need 3 bathrooms, you've got 3 bedrooms.
Standards have really changed, haven't they?
Oh gosh, yes. People's expectations, Nick.
A 3-bedder here is renting for $513 Australian dollars a week, which is well below the market price. Each apartment that's advertised gets hundreds of inquiries, for obvious reasons.
This place is brand new. It even smells new. It's light, it's not dingy like so many other affordable places in London. It's not in the most ideal location, but you can still get into central London in half an hour on the train. So it will tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people, but not everyone can qualify for this scheme.
You have to meet certain eligibility criteria, so your income has to be below $60,000 a year, and that's a household income. So 2 joint incomes of $30,000 will take you to the limit. You mustn't own any other property, either in the UK or overseas.
Everyone, regardless of income, regardless of job, should be living in a home that is safe and dignified and stable.
But what if you don't qualify for social housing or the government's affordable housing schemes? A potential solution might lie deep inside some of London's otherwise abandoned buildings. It's called guardianship.
So, Catherine, why is this home under guardianship? What's the plan for it?
Yeah, well, this block as a whole is going to be regenerated in the next couple of years. So they're going to build brand new flats.
Under the guardianship model, renters can live inside the unwanted buildings until the demolition works begin. It could be months or it could be years.
So it's much better for everyone if someone's living here, treating it as their home, taking care of it in the way that you would your home anyway, which also means that the people living here can get much cheaper housing than they could anywhere else.
Some properties under guardianship go for half the market price. Demand is so high, Catherine's firm only selects candidates who can prove they do volunteer work. Perhaps the biggest hurdle, though, is uncertainty. Guardians can be told to leave within 30 days, so this solution is definitely not for everyone.
It's not a good match for people who are vulnerable, for people with kids, but they do need to be flexible and resilient so that when we ask them to move out, it's not a catastrophe for them. It's really important to be clear that property guardianship is not a whole solution to the UK's housing problem. Like it's one really good solution, but we do really need to build some more housing.
And that's something almost everyone in this city can agree on.
So we've looked at government-owned social housing and the relationship between private landlords and renters, but are they the only two options? Could there be another way?
Here in Australia, there's been a lot of focus on housing affordability, and possible solutions like rental caps have already been ruled out, and zoning is not going to change anytime soon. But there's another possible solution, the build-to-rent sector.
Well, they're homes that no individual will ever own, and they're springing up all over Sydney.
Under this model, a property is owned by a single person or company and is professionally managed for the sole purpose of being rented. On paper, build-to-rent promises a lot of things. They offer long-term tenancies, on-site management, and the ability to make alterations like painting and decorating. They are also built to solely increase rental stock. It's a relatively new market in Australia. There are already projects in Sydney, Perth and Brisbane, but there's one city that's leading the way. More than 50% of build-to-rent projects are in Melbourne. While it's just getting started in Australia, it's already huge overseas.
The American dream isn't for sale, it's for rent in this community near Atlanta, Georgia.
In the US, almost 6.5 million homes have been developed since 1992. I'm here in the Sydney suburb of Marrickville to check out a very new build-to-rent property. This is Nightingale Marrickville. The land was donated by a church to a not-for-profit developer. They're working with charity Fresh Hope to rent out affordable units at a discount to low or middle income workers. It doesn't look like much, but in a couple months' time, this building is going to open to just renters. If you want to live here, you have to join a rental lottery, just like we saw with Jade in New York. Let's go have a look. So this is one of the units in this building?
Yeah, so this is typical of the 54 affordable homes in this building. Small footprint home, tile house apartment that we call them, has a full kitchen, has a full bathroom.
I have to say I'm very pleasantly surprised at how efficient the space has been used here. It's no secret that land is expensive in Sydney, and the reason these places are so small is to keep costs down. Okay, so rents here are set at 70 to 80% of market rate, but as we know, rents have never been more expensive. Is this actually affordable?
Yeah, it's a great question. To jump into 50-40% of people's market rent, there needs to be significant input from government.
So that place showed a lot of promise, but don't you hate it when you don't get to see the finished product? Let's go have a look at a build-to-rent in another area. I'm heading to the Western Sydney suburb of Homebush to have a look at what a build-to-rent property looks like once it's up and running. These rooms are rented out at full market rates, and they're a more typical example of what the housing model looks like. This is coming from one of the country's biggest developers, Mirvac. No discounts in this building.
Angelique, this is our permanently set up display apartment. So we've got a 1-bedroom apartment here on the ground floor, 50 square metres internally with a 24-metre courtyard.
So this is a 1-bedroom place?
Yep, 1-bedroom apartment.
There's no doubt that a place like this looks really lovely, but at $680 per week, it's on the pricier end of the spectrum. But build-to-rent properties have to make a profit.
So why would a builder or developer undertake a build-to-rent project rather than a build-to-sell?
One, you're building to sell down, and the other, you're looking to hold for the long term and looking to drive quite stable, long-term, sustainable income streams from it.
One of the benefits of a build-to-rent property like this is the stability it offers. Because it's run by a big business, they usually offer you long leases, which means you're not likely to get kicked out when the owner wants to move back in. It's built solely for renters.
For anyone that's kind of stressed about housing or is really stressed about renting, I would strongly suggest looking into the build-to-rent option because it buys you the flexibility but the security and independence to kind of live as you would in your own property.
I think that what we're seeing today is that we're at the infancy of the industry. And while the commercial return is there for market build to rent, it's really challenging to deliver affordable product at the same level. What we really need is more government support in this area.
There's nothing about build to rent specifically that makes it more affordable. The only way it's easing pressure on the rental market is indirectly because it might be taking some pressure away from other types of rental properties.
No denying that for many people, the experience of renting just sucks. Data from New South Wales suggests that most tenancies are less than 547 days. That's a year and a half.
People really want to have communities. They want to know the people around them. And you just can't do that as a renter because you can be forced out, not only of the home, but of the community.
For better or worse, in Australia, people often view renting as a temporary affliction, something that must be endured on the way to home ownership. That's not the case everywhere. In Vienna, Austria's capital, most people rent, and renting for life is entirely normal. But that's the result of very different decisions about housing made a century ago. Maybe build to rent offers one step in that direction, but one solution won't fix this problem. Unscrambling the egg is difficult when everyone in the market, whether they're a renter or a landlord, has something at stake. We've looked at some of the dynamics affecting rental costs, but not all. There are too many to cover in an hour. Supply is undoubtedly one big piece of this puzzle. We've seen how different philosophies of development can drive a lot of new construction. But Australia has a very different mindset to heritage and zoning, and change isn't easy. We've seen how rent stabilisation can help some people secure a pretty decent home. The sky hasn't fallen in New York, nor in Canberra, but equally, it alone hasn't resolved rental pressures.
Rental pressures are probably going to start to ease up a bit in 2024. I really hope that doesn't mean that we let go of this conversation and rights for tenants and the provision of social and affordable housing. Because if we do have a shock in the future, we don't want to be going through something like this again.
There's no silver bullet here. It will be a mix of different ideas and programs that help correct the market. The solutions we've seen from around the world could all play a part in that. The only way to fix something that's broken is to work hard at repairing it. Just like a home, drawing up the plans is one thing, turning it into something concrete is much harder.